Hello lads and ladies, welcome back to this video on the 67 Hail Hail channel on YouTube. I've never started a video like that, so I thought I would mix things up a little bit today. Now, later on, basically for the last few minutes of the video, we will be looking ahead to tomorrow night's Premier Sports Cup quarter-final at home to Wraith Rovers. But that's only going to take up a fraction of today's video because we've got quite an interesting kind of fact file for you today. You may or may not know, but Celtic made an appointment yesterday. That means they hired someone in a backroom staff kind of role. Not too many people are talking about it. After doing a bit of digging today, I'm quite excited. Now, I did try and get an expert, someone with a bit of knowledge to chat to me on this video. I got in touch with the former Livingston, Bradford City and Morton manager. I think he managed other teams as well. David Hopkin, who knows Anton McElhone, the guy who Celtic have appointed as their new head of sports science. He hasn't got back to me yet, as I just double checked. Yep, no reply yet from David Hopkin, so we're doing this video solo. Hopefully I got away with that terrible name dropping there and we can move on and chat about the appointment of McElhone. As I say, I think it might be quite a big one that maybe goes under the radar at Celtic, but that we look back on in the future as being a pretty positive move. I have been doing so much research, about 3.5 hours worth of research on McElhone today. Doesn't help that he doesn't have a Wikipedia page, but I've kind of trawled through various websites. His LinkedIn page was particularly helpful. Various articles on him. So we're going to tell you all about who Celtic's new head of sports science is. But before that, this is an appointment that Ange has wanted for a while. Now, if we go back to the end of July, he spoke about the need for help in terms of conditioning and sports science. It was around about the same time when everyone was asking, are you going to bring in your own backroom team of coaches as opposed to kind of conditioning and medical staff? And Ange actually made the point that he felt it was more important that we got in help in the conditioning and sports science area. And it's not hard to work out why. We know the way Ange likes his teams to play. Out of possession, it's completely frantic. Win the ball back as quickly as possible. In possession, I'd say it's a little bit more measured, although he still wants players to work hard. Remember those comments during the open mic session of wherever you are on the pitch, wherever the ball is, even if it's at the opposite side, 60, 70 yards away from you, you need to be tuned into the game. He wants players working hard at all times, and his football is very demanding. I don't think we could argue with that. We've potentially already found that out to our cost with the number of injuries we have at this moment in time. And hopefully, fingers crossed, the appointment of McElhone is going to change things for us. We haven't had anyone in this role since the end of June when a guy called Jack Naylor left the club to join RB Leipzig. I was about to call them Red Bull Leipzig. I think they're just RB Leipzig nowadays. That was shortly after Ange's arrival. Naylor had been at Celtic since the Brendan Rodgers days. He was brought in shortly after Brendan Rodgers came into the club. I think he was pretty well thought of at Celtic as well. His job was head of sports science. That's the exact same role that McElhone has taken on. So who is he? Well, as I say, he doesn't have a Wikipedia page, so that's not the best start when you're looking to find out about someone, but he does have LinkedIn. On that platform, he describes himself as an experienced A-licensed coach and elite football performance practitioner. He also describes himself as a creative and progressive coach, says he has the capacity to lead across all areas of training, match days, analysis, physical conditioning, and talent identification. McElhone also lists some of the managers he's worked with over the years, the likes of Mauricio Pochettino, Harry Redknapp, Andre Villas-Boas, Brad Friedel, Tony Mowbray, and John Collins. They were both at Hibs, and most recently David Hopkin, who still pied my texts. I'm going to keep checking. He worked with him at Morton and Bradford. The name Anton McElhone is a pretty unique name, and when I heard it yesterday, I knew I'd heard it somewhere before. Had the feeling that I'd actually spoken to him at some point in the past. I think it was a couple of years ago. I was doing a job on a Saturday afternoon at a Morton game, and for some reason David Hopkin, who was the manager there at the time, again had decided to patch me and wasn't doing the post-match press duties, and it was his assistant McElhone who did the post-match interview with the press. So I have actually met him in the past, can't say I remember much about him, but I've watched a few of his videos today on YouTube, and he does seem to talk a good game, but as we know, that is only about an eighth of the battle. Anyway, we're going to do the timeline of Anton McElhone, starting with his early days and bringing it all the way up to the present day. What experience has he gained in his career so far? What can he bring to Celtic? What different roles has he worked in? Because he does have quite a kind of varied skill set, I would suggest. Before I do that, just briefly, I need to explain 3 different terms, because I'll be honest, I didn't really know what they meant an hour ago, and it will just make this journey a lot easier for all of us if I do this now. So first up, strength and conditioning, in its simplest form, is the practical application of sports science to enhance movement quality. Sports science is a discipline that studies how the healthy human body works during exercise, and finally, reconditioning is a performance-based model for training and preparing athletes following injury. Right, sorted. So this is his career trajectory so far. Now, first of all, he did study at UWS, where I hear all the legends go to uni, before doing a master's in strength and conditioning. His first job was an academic coach at Queen's Park in 2002, before he became academy coach at Hibernian 2 years later. Then came the big stint in his career. It was at Spurs, and he was there for a total of 10 years, just over actually. He started off there as development, fitness and conditioning coach for 3.5 years before becoming fitness and reconditioning coach. So taking away the development bit basically, and he was in that second role for the rest of his time at Spurs, around 6.5 years. He worked there under 6 different managers, which does say a lot given the nature of turnover nowadays, especially in English football. So that was from 2007 to 2017. It's at that point that McElhone is whisked away to the MLS with New England Revolution with their new manager Brad Friedel. Now the pair had worked together at Spurs for 4 years. Remember, Friedel played for Spurs for a fair chunk of his career, and it was reported by several outlets that bringing in McElhone was one of the first things that Friedel did when he took over the job at New England Revolution. That probably says a fair bit about how he rated McElhone. So at Revolution, McElhone had 2 roles. He was head of fitness and conditioning, as well as being the assistant coach, which I assume is just an American way of saying assistant manager. McElhone led training, with Revolution playing a high pressing game. Interesting, not too dissimilar from how Ange likes to play at the moment. McElhone managed and led all fitness and conditioning for the team, and he actually says on his LinkedIn that the injury list was one of the best in the MLS. Now, I found a really interesting article from the fan website of a later club that will come on to, Bradford City, where they spoke about what McElhone had done in the past in his career. Really useful to a guy like me who's making this video. There was a very interesting paragraph that spoke about McElhone's time at both Spurs and Revolution. It's quoted as saying, during his time at both New England and Tottenham, he tasked the players with a maximum body fat percentage of 10% to be tested once every 3 weeks. When he started at New England, barely 20% of the team could fit this classification, but by 6 months in, that number was up to 75%. Now, when you consider some of the issues Celtic have had with fitness, basically every manager since Brendan Rodgers, which is only 2, have complained about players being unfit at various points. This could be a bit of a masterstroke from Celtic, getting in a guy who's proven to get people fitter, players fitter. Now, I know you would kind of take that for granted in the role that he's taken on at Celtic, but it is very encouraging when you look at the way he improved fitness seemingly at both New England Revolution and Spurs. Anyway, McElhone lasted only 11 months in the greater Boston area, which I'm assured is where Revolution play. Again, he was headhunted by his long-term pal David Hopkin. Now, David Hopkin, who, still not had a reply from him. They're long-term pals, Hopkin and McElhone, and basically he'd swapped Brad for Bradford. He was assistant manager there, with Bradford's press release saying he, quote, specialises in sports science and conditioning. At the time, McElhone said, we need to get the most out of every department, technically, tactically and physically. Again, he led training at Bradford. He also did tactical and opposition analysis and was even involved in scouting players. So quite a wide job specification for McElhone, seemingly, with Bradford. He even actually managed the Bradford reserves in some of their matches as well. Is there anything this guy can't do? Well, seemingly staying at a club that isn't Spurs for longer than a year, because he soon left Bradford, soon after Hopkin, and the pair next teamed up at Greenock Morton. Again, McElhone was Hopkins' assistant for 18 months this time, before becoming caretaker manager when Hopkin left. Now, interestingly, Celtic's very own Stephen Welsh was at Morton in this period, so at least one guy in the current Celtic camp will know what McElhone is about. He did have a spell as interim manager, as I say. He had a record of played 13, won 3, drawn 6, lost 4. He left Morton in 6th place in March 2021, with current manager Gus McPherson coming in to replace him. And now he's at Celtic, where he is head of sports science. Now, one thing that does strike me about his resume is that when you look at the roles he's done over his career, they have changed quite a lot, and it seems like now he's kind of going back to what he did at Spurs. Now, there might be many reasons for that, but he basically starts out as some sort of a kind of fitness conditioner guru. I still don't quite understand what those terms mean, and obviously has that really good spell at Spurs where he's very much doing that stuff. He then kind of becomes an assistant manager. I think Brad Friedel is the guy who kind of gives him that role, and obviously David Hopkin has him in that role as well at both Bradford and Morton. Now, he's coming to Celtic and he's not going into any sort of assistant manager role as far as we see it. We know his role, it's based in sports science. Maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe it just means that he's more rounded. He does have the UEFA A licence, which is the second highest you can get at UEFA level, just below the pro licence. So he's got experience in coaching as well. Mauricio Pochettino, who certainly has a lot of experience in coaching. He's probably the biggest name McElhone has worked with, well, certainly up until Ange. Pochettino said it was a pleasure to work alongside McElhone, as well as praising his fundamental role in the medical department. We don't know the full story on McElhone coming to Celtic. I've done my best to tell you about him, but we don't really know what Celtic like about him and exactly what he's going to be doing at Celtic. We know roughly the idea, getting the players fitter, getting them better conditioned, helping with injuries, hopefully reducing injuries. These are all things that he can help with and do, but we don't know exactly what Ange wants from him. But what we do know is that we're in a better place now than we were a few days ago when he wasn't in the role at all. Why is that? Because having McElhone in is better than having absolutely nobody in. And having absolutely nobody in that role is exactly the state we have found ourselves in since Jack Naylor left at the end of June. I'm not going to get started on that. I'm just glad we've got someone in now. Ange has publicly said that he wanted a person in this role that's really important to him. So we should all be happy as a result. McElhone has vast experience at different levels, different countries, different jobs. Let's just hope he can come into Celtic and really become the unsung hero. That's how he was described in that width of a post Bradford City fans article. I am going to link that below, by the way. They described him as the unsung hero, and I kind of feel that's how we might be looking back at McElhone in coming seasons when hopefully Celtic are winning plenty of silverware. He's maybe not the most glamorous appointment. When you look at like his last job being Morton and Bradford before that, you maybe kind of think, oh really, can we not get someone more exotic in? But he has a good track record and he's highly thought of by a lot of people. And as I keep repeating, it's much better having him in than having nobody at all. Right, anyway, Roth Ravers tomorrow night, quarterfinals of the Premier Sports Cup. If you've missed social distancing being in place at Celtic Park, fear not. it's going to be back tomorrow. We're not expecting a big crowd for this one, but it is a quarter-final of a cup, and you need to win a quarter-final if you're going to win the cup. So I'll be there looking forward to the game. Hoping for a little bit of rotation, probably not too much, because I think it is important we keep a bit of consistency in the starting lineup. There's no point in trying to second guess Ange for a League Cup game in terms of predicted 11s and all that. So I'll give you a variation on it. I'll give you the team that I would play if I was the manager tomorrow night. The goalkeeper would be Joe Hart. We'd have a back four of Juranovic, Carter Vickers, Starfelt and Adam Montgomery in at left back. I feel like he's worth a shot there. Really not a lot of rotation when you actually think about it. McGregor, we know, is not going to play. So McCarthy, Turnbull, Rogic. We could play Sorrow, but is there any need to have, Sorrow and McCarthy in the team for a home game against Wraith? I certainly feel McCarthy is more in need of minutes than Sorrow. And even in the wing positions, not really a lot of rotation. Abada on the right, maybe Mikey Johnson, but I can just see the argument for continuing with Jota. And Albin Ayeti, who remains the only real fit and available striker at the club, although Giakoumakis could see a bit of game time off the bench. I really don't think we'll have too many issues tomorrow night. If the game was away from home in Kirkcaldy, I would certainly be a little bit more concerned. But the team have just been so good at home this season. And famous last words, probably, but I can't see Wraith causing us any issues at all. Hopefully we can get the game won relatively early and start to kind of give players a little bit of a rest. Looking forward to it though. We'll have a reaction tomorrow night. Not quite sure what form that is going to take, but we will have something for you after the game. Thanks everyone for watching this video. Thanks everyone for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed yet, please do that now. It would be massively appreciated. And we'll be back tomorrow after the game.